What's up, everybody? This is Bobby D here. Bobby D here again with another podcast, and I have a returning guest today. I have one I consider a very good friend. Some people know him as Michael Manson, but I know him as Taylor Pressley.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, Taylor. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me again. It was real fun last time I was on here.
Yeah.
A lot of good feedback from that show, and I really did enjoy talking a lot about Power Rangers.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I would dare say, I was talking to you before we got into this, that it's probably been arguably my most popular one so far, because a lot of the guys, like Curtis and Luca and those guys, we talk about wrestling. We're always keeping the eye on the pulse with wrestling and talking about just different things. But with us, I think we're, we can talk about so much more, like Power Rangers, horror movies, Mike McCann. We can talk about everybody,
And Mike McCann, and he actually reached out to me last week. I told you about Ranger Stop that's coming in Atlanta around June, and he actually said that he gets some tickets, and he offered some to you and me, and he wanted to know if we wanted to go.
So he offered us free tickets.
Yeah.
How does he get free tickets?
He told me he gets it from Karen Ashley, the woman who played Aisha from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
No joke.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. And the funny thing was, I was at work when I got this message, and I'm over here explaining to him dude, I love Karen Ashley, man. I attribute her for the reason why I wanted to get into graphic design, because I made her this what's now a meme, but back then it was just crap you made on the internet. And I sent it to her, and she was like, "Oh my god, I love this. Can I put this on my page?" And that was basically what got me into graphic design. I told him that story on the message, and he just kind of messed back with, "Hey, you want to meet her?" And I'm like, "Ah!"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was so at a plant in Toccoa, there's probably some security footage of me going. No audio, because there's never audio with those things, but me freaking out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I told my friend John, who I've actually done a lot of conventions with. I'll go to conventions with him, but he's the guy who came and fixed the trailer. He was Johnny K at one of those episodes.
Johnny K. I remember the food episode where we what was it?
It was an eating contest.
And isn't he like a champion?
No, he's not. We made that up on the spot.
No. He's a champion. He was a champion.
Oh, he was a champion. Yeah, he's a champion.
Yeah, he was a champion.
He got a champion of getting that pan to the face.
Yeah, exactly. What did we say? How many hot dogs? What was his record?
I don't think we gave him a record, but he said he was doing it for 8 years.
8 years.
And he started at tailgate parties at UGA.
For some reason, I think 300 is a nice, good round number for 300 hot dogs in one sitting.
God, I would hope not. Ugh.
Wouldn't that? I don't know how they do it.
Afterwards, it is the worst pain in their life.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Has to be.
And just the preparation as far as being able to get your body right, get your tummy right, because God, there's some days I wake up, I don't want to eat anything, and then some days I wake up, I want to eat the whole house.
It's also that whole crap of they take the hot dog, dip it in water, and they just kind of inhale it.
Ugh,
soggy bread.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, exactly. Ugh,
also, you're just gonna eat hot dogs, no mustard, no nothing.
No.
Come on, make it an adventure.
Mustard, ketchup, relish, maybe some slaw.
Tell you what, take a hot dog and have them dip it in Ghost Reaper or something like that. Or Carolina Reaper and Ghost Pepper.
It's good. It tastes good. But yeah. So you're telling me Mike McCann? He's got the hookup, I guess.
Yeah.
He does a lot of these conventions.
He does. He did cosplay for years, didn't he?
I think he still does.
I don't know.
Correct me. I know, Mike. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because I know you're probably watching this, but we just wanted to give you a shout out and let you know that yes, we do want free tickets, because the best part about that is free. And
the Yellow Power Ranger.
And Karen Ashley, of course, obviously. But when is Ranger Stop this year?
It's June 13th and 14th. Right. I've been sharing their stuff left and right.
That's right. I see you. I'm always seeing you share stuff. If it's Power Rangers or anything like that, I'm always looking up to see who shared it.
You know what? At this point, I just kind of at one point just kind of started saying to myself, if it's Power Rangers, I'm just gonna start sharing. Maybe some of these pages will reach out to me or something.
Well, like you said, you were getting into graphic design, and Karen Ashley you said validated.
Yeah, so I was in college when I started the graphic design thing, and I wanted, I was just making like little, picture edits, at the time for like, OSWA and
Yeah,
stuff. Like this is
yeah,
before I was even a wrestler.
yeah,
I was making like White Trash and Chad Silva and all these
yeah.
and Ink
Yeah,
and all these other guys.
White Trash. It was a tag team
Yes.
gimmick name, by the way.
Yeah, well, I'm not dogging anybody.
No,
but,
no, they were great, man. Cody and Jimmy, my
Yeah.
God, they play. Not, please don't get offended. They played the part very well.
Yeah. But I was just making that, and it was just kind of like a hobby that I was doing in between classes. And then, I just kind of like started like thinking, I really like doing this, and I kind of want to tell like my family and stuff, like, I really want to do this for a living. I want to like get into graphic design. And my parents, who were always the whole like, no, you should get a career and like something stable and all this other stuff. And then I was literally working with my dad one day, and I was waiting for like one of the trucks to get filled up, and I made this on the fly, and I sent it to Karen Ashley, and immediately she was like, "Oh my God, I love this! Like, can I post this on my page?" And that was it from there. I was like, "This is real validation, and it's from one of my childhood heroes."
Wow.
So I haven't stopped since, and I'm trying to get to where like I can't draw. That's one of the biggest issues. But I am thinking about going back to school, taking some art classes and things like that to help.
Yeah.
But since doing that, it's also one of the reasons I love going to these conventions. In fact, I've reached out to a couple artists and such to actually kind of collaborate with them for certain products. One thing I'm working on right now is a kind of like a Mother's Day piece for horror movie stuff. It's
Wow.
I mean, I'm not gonna say what the actual design is because I'm gonna wait until I actually drop it, but it's gonna be a collaboration of Jason Voorhees and Norman Bates,
Wow, that sounds really cool.
the two biggest mama's boys in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But you were saying one thing that Tony and I were talking about at the last podcast was I asked him this. I'm gonna ask you the same question: is do you think that stuff, drawing, graphic design, music, wrestling, do you think that's gotten easier? Like, is it evolved? Like, as far as anybody can do it, or do you think there's still certain elements? Because we talked about wrestling. I mean, anybody can be a wrestler, right? And that was a criticism. Anybody can be a singer, I guess. Anybody.
I think it's becoming more socially acceptable. Like, not in the sense like it wasn't, but in more of like there's more of a platform. There's more like. So we got things like TikTok. We have things like YouTube and all this stuff. Which growing up, if you wanted to be an artist growing up, you had to paint. You had to paint. You had to sculpt. You had to do all this other stuff. You had to get recognized through circuits and such like that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's really you just build up your own following and go from there. And eventually, you'll probably gain enough traction where you get picked up by something. Like, all right, so there's a friend of mine that I met through another wrestler who shall remain nameless because right now he's like a lot of controversy around him. But this guy who I consider he's a friend of mine. He makes bead art. Okay. And it was like he was like all over Facebook for a minute, and then it was like that he was just sharing that. Then he had his own page, and I see him going to these conventions and all these events where he's raffling off stuff, or he's like making these really detailed like bead art paintings and bead art like canvases, like on top of canvas paintings and stuff. So I think it is more acceptable. Like there's more of a acceptable is the wrong word. Accessible. That was the word I'm looking for. Accessible. It's more accessible. Like one of my favorite pieces that he's done is he did a black and white realistic portrait of Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park.
Man, I miss Chester.
I know, right? If you ever want to check that guy out, though, it's Bead Bop Art. His name is Jamarcus Dorsey. He's an awesome guy.
Say it one more time. Sorry, I might have interrupted you there.
It's Bead Bop Art by Jamarcus Dorsey. He's a great guy. Now, hold on. No, I'm probably going to get off here, and it's going to be like, oh, it's not really that name anymore or something. But still, you know his name.
Yeah,
you know his name.
I figured if we're wrong, just put it in the comments. That's just what you do.
Yeah.
And correct us. Cause,
and I'm sorry if I got it wrong, Jamarcus.
Yeah. But yeah, we were talking about. I love graphic design, and like you said about drawing. I wasn't that great of a drawer. I'm left-handed, so that I've already got a kind of a disadvantage when it comes to handwriting and drawing. And but one thing I've realized too over the years, that as graphic design, everything's getting more advanced. I feel like it's become easier as far as like with programs and stuff that can assist you. I think a lot of comes down to that. Programs are getting smarter. AI is coming into it's already here, obviously, but I mean, but I just, my fear is I want to make sure that, you know, the people that have talent and have those connections can still make it.
Yeah, they don't get washed away with everybody else.
Yeah, and that's my biggest fear, because you know, we live in this era of creativity. You know, we talk about nerd stuff. We talk about Power Rangers. We talk about, you know, going and seeing people, and like you just said with you know, you got Karen Ashley, you got Austin St. John. you got you know, guys like that. You know, David Yoss, my favorite Ranger now that Tommy is no longer around. But one thing,
Johnny Young Bosch.
Johnny Young Bosch, yeah, we can sit here and name drop all day long.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at is, when you go to these conventions, there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes, like the creative people. Sometimes I just don't think that they get that recognition as someone that's in front of the camera. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to appreciate the creative process and a lot more.
I mean, like I said in the last podcast, Mark Richardson, the prop master from Power Rangers, he was a really nice guy, and I got all these like stories when I talked to him. And just when you take the time to look at some of the props that they built for the show, it's like that doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's like, it also bleeds out into other things. Like, you know, you have a lot of independent movie makers now, like the horror movie like aspect of, you know, independent films. Like they're killing it right now. Like, I know there's not one person here who doesn't at least once think about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Yeah. And one thing I think about, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the reason that movie exists is because didn't the Winnie the Pooh copyright or the patent kind of...
Yeah, I think it entered public domain or something like that.
Because I was looking at that, because we're coming up on now, like with all these IPs that are now becoming... and I don't think people realize that like it's limited. What is it? 40 years?
Something
years?
like that.
Something like that. Like I could be wrong again.
I don't know too much about law. That's the one thing I don't nerd about.
Well, I got sued a while back. So back in 2010, I got sued by my favorite person, Dana White, in the UFC, and so. You know, I educated myself pretty good on copyright law and stuff, and of course, I got friends that deal with copyright law and everything. So, you know, I don't know a lot about it. I knew a lot about it from my case, but yeah, that's one thing I've always been interested in, is public domain when something comes available, because you know, like I said, Winnie the Pooh, and when that come out, it was it was different.
Yeah. So do you remember? So do you remember like a couple of years ago when everybody was freaking out because that Mickey Mouse was like going into public domain? Oh, so here's the thing. It wasn't Mickey Mouse that went into public domain. It was the first ever appearance of Mickey Mouse, which was Steamboat Willie.
Yes.
Steamboat Willie is now a horror movie.
Really?
They're starting dropping trailers.
Do you think that like horror is like the go-to now? Like that's like...
I feel like we want to.
We need to make, like, if we take an object or something that's not meant to be, just make it into horror.
A couple years ago, they put out a Grinch horror movie. It was independent on the internet. It was just, they don't call him the Grinch. He's the mean one. It's not Cindy Lou Who. It's Cindy You Know Who. But
I love it. I love that.
I loved it because it kind of always like flowed. The two ideas that I've always loved seeing was when people combine the Grinch and Krampus, and I'm like, it makes so much sense. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's easy to take something and turn it dark. Like there's this like dude on YouTube who makes these like really messed up cartoons called it's like Meat Canyon. Meat Canyon. Meat Canyon or Meat Cannon, one of the two.
Meat Canyon. Okay.
But it is the most disturbing cartoon. He draws them so gross too. So like there was this one with like Ed, Edd and Eddie, and it's like, you know how they're always doing like scams and stuff like that. Well, there's one where like Kevin walks up and is like, "What are you dorks doing?" He goes, 25 cents and you can see the face of God. And he gets in there and Ed is like, I think eats him or something like that.
Uh-huh.
It's all messed up. Like there's one where there's this one Bugs Bunny one that I'm not going to get into because I won't get you in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the funniest part was like it got sued by Warner Brothers because it was like copyright issues or something like that, or I think it infringed on actual intellectual property. But the way he was able to spin it was that it's now canon that Bugs Bunny is a horrible, horrible person. Like he does some shady stuff. We know what I'm talking about because I think we've all seen the video.
Yeah.
But it's called Wabbit Season.
Wabbit Season. Yeah.
Look it up.
We can't
Thank me later.
Thank me later. Show it on here, so go check it out if you dare. You know?
Yeah, but like I said, I think horror is that one aspect that we can all kind of vibe with. We all have intrusive thoughts. We all have like the dark thoughts. There is not one person alive that you cannot tell me there's not one person alive that has not had at least one violent thought about somebody.
Well, it's yin yang principle. You know, for every you can't have good without a little bit of bad. You can't have all bad without a little bit of good. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like you said, intrusive thoughts. And
we all have a dark side.
Before we come on here to record, we talked about that. We talked about how everybody, it tends to have a dark side. Everybody messes up. Of course, the messing up can be extreme to really minute, but yeah, I agree with that, and I think horror really feeds that and everything. And of course, then it leads into art imitating life, imitating art, imitating life, and the cycle never ends, And
then everybody's got a scapegoat for like, well, all this violent stuff wouldn't happen if they kept putting horror movies in, or they playing video games and stuff. Which that's never been the case. Like,
no.
Horror has been a genre since like the dawn of time. There's never been one instance of something that didn't have a scary aspect to it. Like, you can go into every form of mythology like that you read about, every form of art, every form of storytelling. There's always going to be a monster in the dark. Mm-hmm. Or there's always, like, we learn about mythology and stuff. Have you ever read any Greek mythology? It is some of the most violent stuff you will ever read.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So, but it's become this it's become the boogeyman that everyone wants to throw blame on. That in video games, violent video games. I'm like, Japan plays the most video games. Japan has a whole thing for horror genre down there. They have the fewest number of violent crimes. Yeah. So
I think it's more of a cultural thing. I think, we talked about that. And I don't think it's just one thing. I don't think it's just like they try to say video games is it. Video games is violent. We need to ban video games. Created the ASRB with Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, all the old 90s games. But I don't think it's one thing. And I think everybody likes to, I think people just want to be like, that's it. They want something absolute, and that's definitely not absolute.
I mean, it's like,
it takes a lot of different things.
I mean, it's like what Billy Loomis said, movies don't make psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Yeah. I think that's what I loved about the Scream movies.
My God.
Is the fact that it took everything that people were thinking and people were criticizing, people were complimenting, and just shoved it right in your face. The meta, that's the word. It's meta,
God, if we were going to talk, I wish I got my wife up here. Yeah. Like, she loves Scream. Like,
dude, she can come next time. Seriously. Like I said, I plan on, I like you as a guest, man. I want to keep.
If she's not teaching, she's which that's a horror movie on its own. Mm-hmm. Not because of her, not because of them kids.
Nowadays, yeah. Oh gosh.
No, so yeah, Scream has always been one of those horror movies that's one of the go back to. Like, first off, let's agree something. Who would you say is the villain of the Scream franchise? Who's the villain?
That's a hard question.
No, man, like who's the definitive villain of Scream?
Well, Ghostface, right?
Yeah, you know who I think it is?
Who?
Sydney's mom.
Yeah,
she is a. All right, so look,
Maureen.
Like, she started this because she cheated on her husband with Billy's dad.
Yeah.
And that split up the mom and dad. Mm-hmm. Billy went psycho, tried to kill her. All right, second movie rolls around. Mrs. Loomis comes back, wants revenge because her mom got with her husband and drove her son crazy, and she had to kill her son. in self-defense. All right, another point for Marine. Third movie comes around. It's Sydney's half brother,
Yeah.
who got put up for adoption and just completely shut out by Maureen. Holy crap! When did Sydney stop paying for the sins of her mother? Jesus.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, spoiler alert, by the way. So if you hadn't seen the Scream movies, go see them.
You should.
But,
Well,
but
I mean,
I don't know. They've been out for so long now. The originals. They've been out so long now that I mean, at this point, it's kind of like the Star Wars twist. No, I am your father. I mean, at
you
this
might as
point,
well know.
Yeah, if you don't know at this point, then you've been living under a rock.
Honestly, I knew the ending of Scream before I even saw it.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Really?
so I wasn't always the big horror nerd that I am now.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got into it when I was around in middle school and then like early high school.
What year was that, by the way?
2007 or 8.
So around late 2000s.
Yeah. So it was most because I was a little bit of a like scaredy cat growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got into horror, it's like that opened a whole new door for me. But I would still watch horror kind of like adjacent stuff before that. So I would watch Goosebumps. I would watch, I watched Tales from the Crypt, but honestly, I was a kid. I was just kind of looking for all the Crypt Keeper scenes.
Yeah.
But I also watched Scary Movie.
Mm-hmm.
That was
the
so
parody. Okay. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and I saw Scary Movie before I saw Scream, so I
Wow.
knew what the plot was before
okay.
I saw Scream, and then I saw Scream 2, and I was like, this is way better.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because Mickey was the best one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny listening to you. You're actually you're saying exactly mine. Okay. Just to give you kind of my journey to horror. When I was 5 years old, I think, and then here we go. You were in middle school in 2008. I was 5 years old in 1985. Okay, so I'm an old guy. I remember we was at the video rental store again, old guy at the video rental store.
We need to bring those back, by the way.
Oh God, I'd love to have a Blockbuster or Movie Gallery or a Hollywood Video. I'd love to have some of that, but anyway, I digress. 5 years old, the very first movie I ever rented, and I begged my parents to rent Thriller, like just the music video. It wasn't a movie, obviously, but I was 5 years old. I didn't know it was a VHS of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and I begged my mom. I was like, Mom, I want to rent this. She's like, Bobby, gonna get scared. Bobby, no. I went home. It's what, a 13-minute. I think it's about a 13-minute video. Yeah, I had nightmares for a week, scared to death, and then the movie, and this is something I want to see if anybody listen to this. The Mask, the old 80s movie, The Mask, not Jim Carrey, not the 94 movie.
Wait, you mean Mask, though, like with Rocky Dennis?
I don't know. It had Cher in it.
Yeah,
Cher?
that's Mask.
Okay, Cher
Rocky
and Eric
Dennis,
Stoltz, the one that was supposed to play Marty in Back to the Future.
Yeah, and he also had Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott. Yeah. Okay, good. He knows.
Seen Mask?
Yeah, that movie scared me half to death too. I don't know.
That's
why.
not even a scary movie.
I know. It wasn't even a scary movie.
It's his face.
Yeah, it was, and I was like, because it was the very first scene you see him, and it scared me. It almost dare say traumatized me, and then the coup de grace, the third one, Batman '89. Again, not a horror movie, but Joker. Now looking back on it, probably one of the best Batman movies ever made.
Greatest.
Keaton, the Goat, whatever. But back then, I kept thinking Jack Nicholson was going to drive across country from California, wherever he lived. That's the dreams I had, to come get me, because I was, sleeping by myself. And anyway, but yeah, it took me, my journey to horror, it took the Scream movies.
Yeah.
Scream movies are the franchise, is my second favorite movies franchise of all time. It is, and I love the fact that, but the journey there, I had to get older. I had, like I said, but nowadays, it's like kids nowadays are so desensitized. It's like they would look at it like fake. It's stupid. It's makeup and everything. I was truly scared back then. I think that's why I appreciate horror so much.
I mean, you look at movies like Terrifier nowadays, and you're like, holy crap. You can't even sit through it while you're eating. But it's so funny you mentioned the Batman '89 thing. When I was a kid, the ending to Batman '89 scared the absolute crap out. Yes, the way he's just sitting there.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember as a kid, like when I was living in Gray, this is a vivid memory for me. I remember my mom putting Batman on, and I watched it all the way through, and then the Batman, or at the end where Joker falls to his death and he's on the pavement. And I remember seeing the look on his face with the laugh having, and I took off running.
Yeah.
Took off.
Yep.
Another funny thing about that whole deal is, like, around that time, my cousin actually tricked me into watching a horror movie.
Which one?
It was Bride of Chucky. Now, here's the thing. You know how they got me?
How?
He told me it was Bride of Chucky, the episode of Rugrats where him and Lil pretend to be married.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, it's Rugrats because Chucky.
Yeah.
Now, here, sidebar, for when I was a kid, up until like I started watching horror movies, I was terrified of Chucky. That was the one thing constant that I was terrified. My dad, the a-hole that he is, like every time if he saw it on TV, he'd be like, "Hey Taylor, you want to see wrestling or something?" And like I'd come in the room, he'd flip it over, and bam, Chucky, and I'd take off running, and he'd like mess with me about it. He'd just go, "Andy," and I'm just like, ah. Nowadays, Chucky is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, people watch those cheesy like stuff that would have terrified the crap out of us. And they're like, you can see all the wires, all that stuff, because you'll see some stuff like Terrifier. Now, there is one movie I to this day, will put up with. I want to watch this, but knowing its reputation, I want to put this in a room with all they's kids who claim they're just like, oh, it's fake, all this other stuff. And that is a movie called Cannibal Holocaust.
I've never heard of Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust is a horror movie that was so, like, their visual effects were so, like, they did a really good job with their effects. They had to go to court to prove that they didn't actually murder people.
Wow.
It was that bloody, that gruesome. There's some messed up stuff in that movie.
Dang it. What was it called again?
Cannibal Holocaust.
I'm going to have to write that down.
For a while, it was like banned in the U.S.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it available now, though?
Yeah, you can get it anywhere like now. Not like not like at the store or something, but like, it's fine to buy it.
Yeah, you could find anything. It's like what Dominic Toretto said. You could find anything on the internet.
Yeah.
Sorry. Shout out to Fast and Furious, right? But like you said, I was the same way. Like, my parents used to give me a hard time about Batman. Like,
yeah.
And I remembered when Batman Returns came out, they wanted to go see it, and I was like, nope, absolutely not. It took them. They brought up the Adam West. The 1960s Batman. This is what Batman is. This is what Batman is, and they were begging me. They were like, "That Batman's not that. That's Tim Burton's Batman. This is what." And then they showed me Joker, and of course it was Joker, Cesar Romero.
Romero.
I'm sorry, I probably got that wrong.
Cesar Romero.
And it got me a little desensitized to Batman, so I finally went to see Batman Returns, and I enjoyed it better than the '89 at the time.
You enjoyed it because of Michelle Pfeiffer.
I was fixing to say because Catwoman really helped that. And, helped that a lot. And I remember I was even watching a YouTube video the other day about how when Batman Returns came out, they did a thing with McDonald's, and they
pulled their funding because they didn't realize how messed up the movie was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like present it to kids, and then you go watch it. You're like, he's blowing up people. He's putting like bombs on people.
He's kidnapping children. That was the thing that got him.
Yeah, and then what McDonald's Corporation was like for the next Batman movie, if y'all
have Tim Burton on.
Yeah, Tim Burton, and that's why they got rid of him. I would have been interested nowadays as a 40-year-old person. I'd be interested to see the Tim Burton version of Batman
Forever,
if it was going to be called Forever. But
who they were going to have cast as the Riddler, right?
Robin Williams.
Yes, yep. And there's actually little bits of like the script like floating around the internet. There's a lot like they were going to bring out Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, but it was going to be that it wasn't going to be acid that got him. It was when the Penguin burst through the floor at the party.
Yeah,
he was next to the floor.
Oh,
so he got blowing all the hell.
See, I'd be really interested in that now because that was, nowadays it's normal now. You see a person of color in roles and stuff, but that would have been very interesting back then because back then we didn't have all the woke stuff and all the stuff nowadays where, like I said, the diversity thing, but. They also was going to have Marlon Williams was going to play Robin.
Yeah,
I thought that'd have been cool.
That was like one of the like things they were pitching.
Yeah.
They also had like a few other people in mind. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were gonna get one of the, like, characters from what's it called? Growing Pains, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
It was one of not like Kirk Cameron or anything like that, but it was like one of the side characters.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember.
I can't, but I just remember, and they also had like other people for, like, they were going to bring a Catwoman.
Yeah.
She was going to be in the final scene, not like she was going to affect the ending.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it was going to reveal that she is alive.
Yeah.
There was also going to be.
Didn't they do that with Returns? That was the last scene in Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Catwoman
Well,
looking
no,
at the
like
signal.
like they
She was
kind
going to do a
of.
cameo, right? 'Cause
Yes.
that was the rumor that Michelle Pfeiffer was going to reprise Catwoman because
Mm-hmm.
it's Catwoman.
Yeah. Because I think in that one the original plan was they were going to have Batman go on the run.
Okay.
Because he has to like reveal himself in order to save like Harvey.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it was mostly, it wasn't going to be like Harvey dies and Riddler's trying to take over the world. No, it was going to be, like, one of the things for the script was Riddler was going to, like, he was stalking Two-Face's wife,
Okay.
and he was also working with Two-Face. So that was kind of like the whole. He also figured out who Batman was, just like kind of little things. And if they got Robin Williams to play that kind of character, because the Nostalgia Critic, he put out like the what if script. He put out a what if script because it's the pieces that were already there, but also they wrote in their own stuff.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wish that movie would get made. It was really good.
Well, yeah, it'd be kind of hard with Robin Williams nowadays.
Yeah.
To make it, but yeah, you could always think. I like that, being able to look back and go, that would have been cool.
And it gives you chills because if Tim Burton's style was very horror based, everyone's all like tries to put him as strictly a horror movie dude, but the thing is, he's not a horror movie director. He's just director with horror influence. It's like,
yeah.
Because look, anybody gonna watch Edward Scissorhands and tell me that movie's scary? Anybody? Or like any movie gonna watch Big Fish? No, there were some scary moments in that movie, but
Yeah.
we're not gonna sit here and be like, oh well, Batman's a horror movie. It's scary, but it's not.
Yeah, it's nowadays, obviously I'm older and I don't think like I did as a kid.
It's like Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
He's a monster movie guy, and he made Hellboy and all these other movies. Scary, but it's not horror movie.
Yeah.
It's horror aspects.
Yeah.
Like,
and yeah.
Now we'll get Clive Barker on the phone, then we'll talk.
Yeah.
That is a horror director through and through.
Looking back, I didn't really watch a lot of the, we're talking about horror movies. I didn't really watch a lot of the old '80s horror movies. I got the most popular ones like Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't watch
slashers. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to find. The slasher films. I remember the era of the '80s. Now going back and watching it, I never, I hated horror movies at that time. I went back and watched them, and I really liked going back as an older person watching those things. But it's funny how people like to make fun of the campiness of things sometimes. But I think it's a product.
Sometimes,
huh?
That's what made it sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it was one of those things that it was a product of their time. But do you think horror movies have evolved? I mean, I think Scream definitely would be like. Would you think Scream when '96 when the Scream movies came out, the first one came out? Do you think that was an evolution of horror movies, like taking the horror movies and kind of not necessarily making fun of them, but being very self-aware of them?
Yeah.
That's ultimately what got me into horror was watching Casey Becker run off like Nightmare on Elm Street, is that the one with the guy killing the babysitters and and it's like
naming off all the trivia.
Yeah, and that's what got me interested because again, the first movie, Scream movie, it did scare me, but I was a teenager at the time, and
that was maybe for teenagers, just kind of chill out.
It gave me more of that adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
like oh god, what's gonna happen? Oh god, and then like you said, the ending with the big twist, not one, but two. And then all the stuff. It really. I watched that movie. It was one of the only VHSs that I watched. I think I might have said this the last time too. That I watched so much that the VHS
burned out.
Yeah. It was starting to get discolored.
Yeah. So Yeah, as like you said, it is one of those things. Like the horror genre has evolved, and there's a lot more we can do with it now. It used to be you put a guy in a mask, you send him off the woods against teenagers, and that was all you needed. And at one point,
and the rules
and the rules. And at one point, it was like there were people who were doing it better. There were people who were doing it worse. For every Friday the 13th, there's a maniac.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I'm not saying Maniac's a bad movie. It's not. Go watch it. But where horror movies like became more evolved is, I think Scream is one of the catalysts. One of, not the, but one of, because it took the whole rules thing and established that. Now we know what to look for. So directors had to like throw you off.
Yeah.
There's always the whole. Now we can also tack in like social stuff. Like one of the things I loved about the original Halloween movies, like the Carpenter films, it was like the whole thing. Like, I didn't like the Rob Zombie one because they gave Michael Myers a backstory.
Yeah.
Is it cool to watch? Yeah. It's always nice to see, crappy people get their just desserts. But the issue is that what made Michael Myers so terrifying is that there was no reason. Mm-hmm. He just did it. Because there was a metaphor behind that. Michael Myers is supposed to be he is supposed to be the fear of what Halloween and horror and things like that are doing to our children. That one day, the children are just going to snap for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's just, it can't be explained. That's what made him so terrifying. There are always these little things behind things. Like, you can take social issues and turn them into horror aspects all day. Jordan Peele is killing it with that.
Yeah.
I love Jordan Peele movies. I'm never going to say the word woke because I feel like everybody and their mama is not using that word right. But the whole thing is that horror is what it is. It's horrifying. It's supposed to be nasty. It's supposed to be disturbing. It's supposed to scare you. Mm-hmm. So taking things that are real issues and making them horrifying, that's just that's a great thing to do.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, so it's like there's some people on YouTube, they take trailers and they'll make them into like different genres of movies.
Yeah.
So one of the best ones they made was If Forrest Gump Was a Thriller.
Yes.
And all you have to do is just take certain scenes and just add a little music on top of it.
Yeah.
So like, all right, look, we've all loved Forrest Gump. We all love those movies. But then you see this trailer where it's like the whole like like that easy, like soft flowing building up music. And then you see clips of him like just kind of popping out from nowhere, doing his little wave, or then you'll see him in the army just like with that serious look on his face, like
yes.
Or then he goes, "Bye, Jenny. I write you every day." So it's little, like, anything can be a horror movie if you try hard enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, and it's not saying like everything deserves to be a horror movie, but it's a very real thing. We all need horror because it helps us deal with real stuff.
And
like we've all like, all right, so look, mob mentality in Halloween Kills. That's one thing we all need to agree with, that it gets out of hand way too quick, and then the wrong person will suffer. Justifying how someone can just flip for no reason. We all want an explanation of why people will do these bad things. But it's more terrifying when we don't know. Yeah.
I remember going back to what you said about the most terrifying person in a horror movie is the one that has no backstory. There's a movie, and I cannot remember the name. I remember watching it on Amazon Prime. It was the guy was attacking people at a school. I think it was Final Exam. It might have been Final Exam.
Sounds familiar.
Again, if you're watching this and I got it wrong, or you know what movie I'm talking about, put it in the comments. And the thing about that movie, it was made really cheaply, but it was also what the director set out to do was to to not, like you said, not give them a backstory. Just it's just a person that's unaliving people. It's just that. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no backstory. There's no, well, he was abused as a kid, or he was traumatic whatever,
traumatized,
yeah,
or
yeah,
bullied or anything like that.
Just scary. I mean, but one thing I like about the Scream movies, and beyond, was like you, in the 80s slasher, it was unrealistic. That was what, when I was scared when I was a kid. My parents would always say, they're not real. Jason's not real.
Obviously.
Freddy Krueger's not real, But Scream, to me, kind of, it kind of proved them wrong in a way, as far as like, you might not have a guy that's burned with knives on his fingers, but you could have someone dress up in a Halloween costume they got at Spirit Halloween and go kill a bunch of friends with a knife. That is realistic.
It is.
And I think that's another reason I appreciated the evolution of the horror movies with Scream and beyond. But of course, then it started the whole teen slasher drama and stuff and everything.
But again,
last summer, and then all the parodies too, So.
Yeah, but like you said, it is like, it's a more realistic thing. Especially since you think no one takes things like mental health as serious as it should be taken.
Yeah.
No one wants to admit that their family members or their friends are messed up.
Yeah.
So it's very realistic for someone to say, just watch horror movies, or just say, or just look at people and like fixate on something and be like, I can do this. But it's not the reason behind it. Sometimes people are just bad.
Yeah.
And as far as like, what makes a horror movie scary and stuff, like, it just makes it more terrifying. My wife, who is just every bit of the horror movie nerd as I am, and she oftentimes has better like opinions on.
Yeah.
So she got me into this movie called Strangers. I don't know if you ever seen it.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out like.
I think I'm thinking of the same one. Yeah.
So what made Strangers so terrifying? One, there's no music in the movie. No jump scare sounds. No nothing.
Yeah.
It's the only time you get music is when they kick over this record player, and it's playing the Mama Tried, on repeat.
Yeah.
So you'll just see like these people just pop up behind you, and it scares the living daylights out of you. So it made the like jumps more intense.
Yeah.
But then you get to the ending of the movie, and right before they, snick them. Try not to say the word, but
you can't say the word anymore. But
No. Right before they, did it to him, the wife and her husband, they're just like tied up to chairs, and they're like, "Why are you doing this?" And the only thing they give you were home. That's it.
Wrong place, wrong time.
There's no backstory. There's nothing. Now, granted, the sequel completely bombed. Horrible movie.
Yeah.
Like, first off, music. There's sound effects now. You show their face. She has the girl who's behind the first killing in the. I'm sorry, wrong word. Bleep that out.
Bleep.
Yeah. But the ones who are behind like the first attacks in the movie, like one of them gets unmasked, and then she has this like real smug look on her face, like I'm like. You made it so, and they talk. They talk sometimes, or they make noise, and it's like you took what was making the movie good,
Yep.
and then you just said, "No, we don't need that." Like, one thing that I thought immediately killed Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is there's a dream sequence where Michael breaks into the hospital and he starts taking out like nurses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The part for me that just immediately ended it was when he's like, attacking a nurse, and he's grunting when he does. He's like, "Urgh! Urgh!"
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, he unmasks himself and he's like, "Die!"
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not Michael Myers. That's Opie from Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Which actually, it's actually
symbol.
Big Sky from WCW.
Yeah. It's a symbol, though, like the mask. It's icons. You know, the mask of Jason, the mask of Michael Myers, because everybody knows it's a William Shatner mask that they got, and
Yep.
they're icons like Freddy Krueger, his knives. If you see that stuff, you know exactly.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's one thing I always hated about when they unmask, because I mean, as much as people are like, well, we want to see what's underneath the mask. Again, it goes
Why?
back, exactly. It doesn't. To me, it diminishes. It doesn't change. It really doesn't change anything. It only hurts it, I think.
Now, I will say the unmasking part for Michael Myers, he does unmask in the first movie, so I'm not sitting there trying to complain like, oh, well, what killed it is that he unmasked. No, the part is that he made noise.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, in the first movie, you get to see him, and the only thing you see is his face and where he got nicked by that coat hanger.
Yeah.
But like you said, yeah, there's a mystique to a lot of stuff. Like there's iconic presence behind certain things. Like we all know that Jason has a hockey mask. We associate that with him.
Yeah.
We associate the machete with Jason, even though he doesn't use a machete that often.
Yeah.
He uses an axe.
Yes.
Leatherface, chainsaw, Candyman, a hook, which I got a Candyman story if you want to hear that one. But then you also got Freddy with the knives and the sweater. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of different iconography for these horror movie characters that we've all kind of come attached to. It's like once you get rid of it, it's like completely out the door. It's not that horror movie anymore.
And that's frustrating to me. And I mean, this is kind of going into wrestling a little bit when we did OSWA. That's why I liked characters so much. And I think we both agreed with that. We liked the characters because, I mean, everybody's always like, well, just be yourself, because that's how wrestling is. It's evolved into just be yourself. And I think that's rolled over into all sorts of entertainment. People don't want to be like, they don't want to go, I like this character. They want to know everything behind the curtain with the character. And I just think that just diminishes Rick Grimes from Walking Dead. This was always the example I used. People don't want to know about Rick Grimes. They want to know about Andrew Lincoln and what he's doing. And then when you hear him on like real interviews and stuff that are not character interviews, but he sounds different. He's got the accent and stuff, and to me it just kind of takes you out of it a little bit. And I get that's what way people are. They want it's like almost like they're so desensitized, and that's what it leads to. It's like man, I want to. It's like the Never Meet Your Heroes thing.
Yeah.
I see Austin St. John. I see him as Jason, the Red Ranger. And I loved Jason, the Red Ranger. And then I eventually got to meet Austin St. John. And I don't know if it was just timing or
a bad day
or whatever. Because I've only met him for like 10 minutes, but it changed my opinion of him. And I'm not saying it's a bad opinion. It just changed. It's like they will say, never meet your heroes, which is why I was always so afraid to officially like sit down and talk to Jason David Frank when he was alive, because I held the Green Ranger Tommy in that such high regard. I didn't want to ruin that. And I think the same thing with horror movies. And of course some movies like, the Scream, I keep going back to Scream. You have to unmask because that's kind of the point at the end is the
twist.
The mask was simply, it was a symbol, and it still is, but it's more of a you're waiting for the big reveal.
Yeah.
And then the twist is 2 killers, and then 3 killers, and then a whole family of killers, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
which like some of those actors, believe it or not, they are the nicest people in the world. Horror movie actors, some of them are awesome.
And I was thinking that too.
Like I said on the last podcast, I got to meet Matthew Lillard. Because they had the whole screencast at Mad Monster the other year.
Yeah.
I got to meet Matthew Lillard, and he was so nice. He thanked me for coming out. He asked me if I had trouble finding the line or anything, because you had to stay in the line, but then you have to go outside because of how long the line actually was.
Yeah.
Then I kind of got back in, and I had him said, you just getting this sign? I said, yeah, I can't do a picture or anything. He's like, it's all right, good. But he signed it, and he gave me the biggest hug. And I'm over here okay, I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
But he was so nice, and then if I had the money, I would have gone and got Skeet Art, because apparently he's also a really good dude.
Yeah.
unrecognizable now, though. Dude, like, he looks like he should be on like Smallville or something.
No.
Like Jamie Kennedy, I have heard horrible things about.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
but I only hear. But I don't like to judge people until I've had a like instance with them.
Yeah,
I met one of my heroes. And I was severely disappointed in Jerry Only from the Misfits, which that's another thing. Horror movies don't just influence movies and TV shows. It's also music. Like horror punk is one of my favorite genres.
Yeah.
I'm friends with a horror punk band that's out of Gainesville called the Casket Creatures. They're really good.
Yep.
And we like one thing that always keeps me coming back is just the way we can just like morph this stuff into like different media. One of my all-time favorite things is like going out and finding like horror movie like action figures or seeing like the references in like TV shows like different, like we all seen Simpsons where Freddy was in there, or like where Groundskeeper Willie was the Freddy character, or there was always like someone will drop a Leatherface comment, or there'll be like a dude who looks like Jason in a cartoon, and it's always one of those things where it's just easy to like fit in. Like there's horror movie like characters in like Power Rangers and stuff like that. There's horror movie characters in like every kid show. There's at least one episode where we have something scary. Like all right, from a young age we were all taught about Dracula.
Yeah.
Frankenstein, the Mummy, Wolfman. They're always, and they can. Here's the thing: at one point, those were the Jasons and the Art the Clowns and things like that. They were terrifying to an audience.
Yeah.
So now we see them in like we have the Count in Sesame Street.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we forget he's a vampire.
It goes and it goes back to what I said about campiness. So like there's different, I guess dare say, subgenres. Like you got your scary Dracula, and you got your Count. Like that's meant for more kids. Like for me, when I was a kid, like watch this instead of this, which is why I don't know. I think that's why I really appreciate it, because there's so much depth. There's so much depth to everything as
like, and it's the fact that it's versatile. We can take this and like certain points. Certain characters stop being scary to a generation or just to us. Yeah. Like, used to be, you take someone to go see Jason, like, the dates would usually end with, like, they're in, like, they'll jump into your arms, stuff like that. Yeah. Nowadays, we take them to go see Jason, it's going to be like, hey, look, you can see the wires.
Yeah, I hate that.
Look at that blood.
I hate that because, like I said, like, I took Caden. Or I didn't take him. I wanted him to watch Scream, and he was only 10 years old. And I remember I was 16, and it was a adrenaline rush. And when he watched it, like I asked him at the very end, I was like, so "What'd you think?" And he looked right at me. He's like, "Well, this is more of like a comedy than a horror." And I'm like, "That's just different generation, I guess." Because I get, like you said, I hate that. I hate the what's the word? Desensitization. Yeah, whatever that is. Not sensitive anymore to things, and they want the real. It's almost like the reality era that sometimes we live in, and but I don't know, kind of. And I think it's funny because horror, wrestling, entertainment, kind of they imitate each other sometimes in that aspect. Like,
or wrestling does siphon off horror, like in various aspects. We all know that Undertaker and Kane, they got their mannerism from Michael Myers. We know that Mankind is from is like a parody of Leatherface from Friday the 13th.
Yep.
Chainsaw Charlie is Leatherface, or things like that.
Yeah.
So like, it's the fact that everyone goes into horror movies because they are the things we know we can turn into a villain. Like, in Power Rangers, there is an episode where, like in the Sentai, it's a way better episode because it's like a 3-parter.
Yeah.
But there was an episode where like this Frankenstein-looking dude, comes out. He can like take the bolts out of his neck and he swings around like nunchucks.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So there's that. There was the character Mutitis, like who is a different monster. That's actually the Frankenstein monster when Lokar possesses him. So that's in the Sentai version, and it was legitimate terrifying. If I'm being honest with you, if you watch it the way I watch it, because Rita starts casting a spell, her eyes start bleeding. Or I'm sorry, it's Witch Bandora in this Japanese version, but
Yeah.
you know, and then you go into things like, you know, that also may have been inspired by, you know, The Exorcist, the, you know, all these other movies of that nature, Warlock, but it's because horror movie is such an easy target. Just say like, hey, I want to turn a horror movie character and turn him into like a kid's character.
Yeah.
Dumb it down a little bit. But then we also nowadays we have the thing like, I want to take a kid's character, I want to turn him into a horror movie character.
Yeah, yeah.
Steamboat Willie, The Grinch, Winnie the Pooh. I think the newest one is going to be like, oh, they were about to put out a new one. I can't remember what it was. Personally, I think we could do a horror movie Pokemon.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
Sure we could. Like you said, I mean, it goes into what I said about Batman, from Batman Returns to Batman Forever, that, you know, McDonald's stepped in and was like, oh, you know, we want you to turn it not scary. We want you to turn it to something for kids. And that's where the colorfulness, I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm probably one of the few people on this planet that enjoyed Forever and Batman and Robin. I mean, I get it. They were campy as hell, and I recognize all the flaws, but I don't know. I like the colors. I don't know. I liked the, you know, the marketing, and the colors. But I'm a kid at heart too. We're both kids at heart. So I mean, of course, I'm kind of the target audience. We're the target audience, but I do like the fact that they're taking that stuff and they're going reverse now. They're going, and that's what's interesting about everything. But we're almost out of time. But like, I wanted to kind of. One more thing I wanted to be like, you know, the evolution. We talked about, you know, slashers to self-aware. What do you think the next evolution was? You know, because like you said, in the new Scream movies, it's elevated horror.
Yeah.
I didn't really understand exactly what that meant. I do know what it means, but I didn't exactly know like what she meant when she said it.
I think more of the... I think that was just more of like what's the target of horror movies.
Okay.
So, but because ultimately it's the same movie. No, it's ultimately it's the same plot. It's the same thing over and over.
Yeah, yeah.
So honestly, it's just the references that change.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
We're all like, there's still the rules of horror movies established. And you know, now we got the requel rules. Now we got the franchise rules.
Yeah.
So I think the next step for things like Scream is. It can only go like further out.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna have to be like the found footage stuff. There's gonna have to be the, you know, like online, like, you know, like Unfriended, where it was like all from the point of view of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna have to be those like characters who are gonna be killed off, and the only thing you're gonna be able to see is them die on screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they tried to do in Scream 4, which, by the way, did you ever notice in Scream 4 that Officer Judy has no child, but in Scream 6 or Scream 5, suddenly she has a child,
and he's in high school.
Yes. Do you know why they had him?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
He was a tribute for Wes Craven.
I was going to say For West.
Yes.
That's the whole
Yes.
For West thing. But yeah, I always wanted that too. Because you look into like I said, like Scream's one of my favorite franchises. So you look into those things, and there's so much. There's so much that we could sit here and pick apart. You know, we could become the nostalgia critic, and you know,
we definitely need a whole podcast just
Cinema
dedicated.
Sins and all those guys.
We need a whole podcast dedicated for Scream. We can just break that down all day.
Oh, I plan on, like I said, we're going to continue on this stuff. Like I said, we got a couple minutes left. The last thing I wanted to ask you, and this was kind of just putting you on the spot, is. You touched on this earlier, and it made me think of it. A lot of times when you start a franchise, the first movie is the GOAT. It's like, but then everything else after that is just not required viewing. Mm-hmm. Is there a movie that you can think of, horror, that the sequels hold up just as much, if not better, than the original? Like they built they're built on the universe, and it's recognized, kind of like Back to the Future. It's not a horror movie, but Back to the Future, no one ever thinks of just the first Back to the Future movie. They always think of the entire trilogy, Back Future 1, 2, and 3, you know, and they always think, because it's one complete story. Is there any horror movies that are
if we're going with
similar to that?
Complete stories, I'll see, that might be a little hard for me, but I know, you know, you have the obvious ones like Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
You know, because Jason wasn't the killer in the first one. He didn't show up until the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get things like I said, like the entirety of the series. one thing I loved about the Friday 13th stuff was that Jason, you ever notice the continuity for Jason's story is always messed up?
Mm-hmm.
Not Jason himself, but the continuity. They're
Yeah.
always like, well, Jason died as a kid. No, he didn't. They explained that in the second one. He didn't die.
Yeah.
So it's because Jason has now become the campfire legend.
Yes.
That's the theme of that. The underall theme is he is now the campfire legend.
Mm-hmm.
Scream, for the first 3 movies, it kind of stayed with that whole, like, it's one story with Sydney's mom. Now, 4 up is all fame. It's all about fame.
Yeah.
Whether it be Sydney's fame, whether it be the franchise's fame, or whether it be the survivor's fame.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those deals where that's usually how it is. So Scream is definitely one of those franchises that you kind of have to be there with the whole deal.
Yeah.
Now, as much as you don't want to watch it, it's still part of it. Or Halloween. Now, most of the Halloween movies are good. There are those ones that are like, these weren't so good. And before anyone says, Halloween 3 is a good movie. Yeah. Just because Michael Myers isn't in it, it doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
He was in it.
He
was in it on the TV.
Yes.
Yeah, he was in it.
There
he
you
was
go.
in it, so...
But just because he wasn't the villain?
Yeah.
Go watch John Carpenter's interview. Explained it. It was supposed to be an anthology series.
Yes.
That he was not supposed to... That was not his turn. He was supposed to be dead.
Yes.
But Season of the Witch is a good Halloween movie, and I stand by that. And I'm probably going to get in an argument with my wife over that at home. Because she says that movie is terrible, and I say it is not.
Season of the Witch.
We all, at Halloween, will sing, Happy, Happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. I will stand on this hill and say that that is a great movie. Like, not a great movie, but a great Halloween movie.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's like I just said. I love those. I love going back and watching all that stuff because I get to watch it through nostalgia. I get to watch it through being older and understanding it better. But I appreciate the like you said, the anthology, the Season of the Witch. Even though, like I said, I think people are just like, well, it's not Michael Myers. It's but then I just feel like that sometimes they overuse the crap out of people sometimes.
That's true, but there are some people who can take one franchise and then amp it up.
Yeah.
Like I touched on Candyman earlier. Candyman is one of the things, he kind of had the steadiness to his franchise a little bit. He's not as big as Jason or Freddy, but his movies are still good.
Yeah.
And then you got the last one. That movie was great, and they touched on the fact that there have been other Candymen, there have been other spirits and all that, which I loved. And I love seeing Tony Todd come back at the very end. Which, I will kind of. I touched on I said I had a story about Candyman, which was awesome. So, as I told you, I'm a big convention guy.
Yeah.
And me and John Keller, we were going to Days of the Dead in Atlanta. That was really my first convention I went to. Mm-hmm. And so around the time, that was when the new Candyman movie had come out. Yeah. And up in Atlanta, there were signs for it everywhere. Mm-hmm. All over the place. So naturally, us being horror nerds, we're going to have a conversation. Now, the whole time we're talking, we're looking for, we just found the parking lot. We don't know where the entrance to the building is. We were walking around this hotel 3 times.
Yeah.
And once around, while we're still looking for the door, we were having this conversation about Candyman. Favorite kills, what we think about him. Kind of like how this conversation is going with all the horror movie stuff.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Candyman, and we noticed there's someone behind us, and we're like, oh, maybe they're looking for the entrance too. And so we're contemplating, turn around talking to the guy, and then we kind of look out of our peripheral, and I'm like, does that guy look familiar? And John's like, yeah, I feel like I've seen that guy. And I went, oh my God, that's Tony Todd, the guy who played Candyman.
Uh-huh.
And so we're kind of nerding out a little bit because he was getting ushered in from the parking lot to his celebrity, the way they go in and get to their booth.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he had an usher behind him and all that.
Yeah.
But so I turned to John and said, you know what just happened, right? He said, what? I said, we were talking about Candyman and Candyman appeared.
That's it.
And then so the funniest part was he had a panel at the convention, and I got to ask a question.
Yeah.
And I prefaced it with, I went, hey, so first off, I want to say that me and my friend were having a talk about Candyman before we realized you were following us in the parking lot. So thanks for not killing us with your hook. This man looks dead at me. He goes, you get one. Like, you get one.
I love it. I love that.
It was, oh my God. I nerd out so hard. And he's also one of those people who's like very nice and he's very smart. Like, my question was like, you know, you've been in like, you know, video games and horror movies and, you know, DC, like, which was probably the more fulfilling, like, you know, thing. And he said, well, if I'm being honest, like, my goal is to get back to Broadway. I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
Because it's like one of those, we see these characters and they're like, oh, they're like these big horror movie icons or been in like DC, you know, properties. You forget these are people who have their own artistic views.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
His view is that he wants to be back in live theater, and that's his deal. And I'm like, I love that.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, like Tony Todd, I always felt like he, like you just said, he was one of the most underrated because you had, like you said, you had your top tiers and your mainstream ones, and Candyman. I don't think Candyman got a lot of love. I think a lot of people, and we're gonna end the podcast here, but like a lot of people got introduced to him through Final Destination. That's a horror franchise. We didn't even get to talk about this, and I'd love to talk about Final Destination.
Oh yeah, we'll go on.
And another one is kind of off kilter a little bit. I'd love to find somebody to talk about the Fast and Furious franchise with, because it reminds me, it's not a horror, obviously it's not a horror movie, but it reminds me of kind of the formula. First couple of kind of stayed with a certain genre, just like in horror movies. The first
now it's off the wall.
Yeah, the first couple of Halloween movies, and it's almost like people sit down, they're like, how can we do something different and make a ton of money? And that's with everything. And I think it'd be something that'd be really funny to talk about in the next one, because I'd love to have you back, man. Seriously.
Yeah, we can get Hector up here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll have to do the Hector thing. But you know why? Because Hector bought 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines. And on top of that, he just came into Harry's and bought 3 T66 turbos with NOS and a Motet system exhaust. I still got it. Good deal. Taylor, thanks, man, so much for being here.
So you do want me to come back, right?
Yes, I want you to come back.
I'll be right back.
Exactly. He will be right back. No, but seriously, like, dude, as long as you want to come on these things, I think, dude, we have the same birthday, and we have the same mind sometimes. So, dude, we can sit here and talk for
We're
hours.
also pack rats.
Yeah. Oh yeah. God, yeah. So it's like all this stuff I've accumulated over 45 years, man. But seriously, thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. Like I said, think about what we want to talk about next time. Because
I will, but first I'm gonna go see what that noise is.
Yeah, let's go see what that noise is real quick. And everybody, thank you very much for watching Bobby D's podcast. Just make sure to do all the normal things. Like, share, and subscribe. Share everything. Let everybody know who we are. And comment stuff. I'd love to have conversations in the comments as well. So Bobby D, Taylor, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.